In 1997, he co-founded Athena Health as a women's health practice management company. And today, Athena Health is the largest and fastest growing virtual back office software company for medical groups in the United States. But the vision is the same, to bring process integrity to the delivery of health care. Jonathan earned a Bachelor of Arts degree with honors from Wesleyan University and a master's degree in business administration with distinction from the Harvard Business School. In 2007, the Boston Business Journal recognized Athena Health as one of the top 20 best places to work. Please join me in welcoming Jonathan Bush to our university today.
Hi, guys. I'm John. I'm just having a brief, awkward moment now while we wait. But I suppose an important part about this conversation is going to be around flexibility. So what I'll do is I'll start without the... Everyone's here is a business school student, right? Is that... No? Not necessarily. Wider range than that. We'll pretend you're a business school student. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to describe a business to you, and then you can raise your hands. $50,000 to invest. Each packet is $50,000. And if you're in, you raise your hand. If you're not, it's okay. This is it's called Athena Women's Health, and a bunch of young fellows with not doctors, not really much experience, have figured out that they think birth in the United States is too expensive and not very woman-centered, not very health-centric. It feels kind of distant and expensive and complicated and not beautiful to them. And so they've got a new clinical model that involves mostly midwives and then a few physicians at the center. And they've convinced one medical group in San Diego, California, to adopt this model. And they've got a birth center option, and they've got all these things. And they need $1.6 million to fund the accounts receivable of this practice that has agreed to switch over. The assets of the company at this point are the goodwill of this one medical group that says that if they come up with the money, they'll sign up. Let's see, there was a laptop. We had a laptop computer. And that's kind of it. There was about 5 people in the company, none of them in it for more than a few months. But a list of investors that thought that they might consider it, former employers and aunts and uncles, and this one medical group. And I would show you the business model. It did not win the Harvard Business School business plan contest. It actually wasn't a finalist either. And we went to the dean and said, you know, what we really are going to spend our lives on this, where we're going to. What's the matter? He said, well, we decided, Jonathan, to make the finalists one of 2 categories: either a business plan that was a surefire double, or a risky home run. That if it worked, it'd be huge. And yours was kind of a risky double. So it's $50,000 to get in, and the theory is that we're going to have a few doctors and then more and more and more midwives, so that the doctors at the core are going to see only sick patients and are going to have their sort of aggressive and interventive care focused on patients that actually have something wrong with them. But the average patient that isn't sick is going to get more labor support, more education, more emotional support, more time with a provider, more prenatal education. So first question, do you like the model? Do you like the idea? Okay? Raise your hand if you're ready to invest. Nobody. I'm in. All right, 2. Very polite people. These 2. Well, we got the money. This was our original business model. And we raised about $1.6 million in $50,000 increments from every former employer and every friend of the former employer and my aunt, uncle, one grandmother, my mom and dad, each $50,000. And we started the company. And the clinical model worked. And the business, the revenue of this practice grew 50% in the first year. But one little thing went wrong, which was that no cash came in to our practice, to our little practice. And we thought it was, we were working very hard on it, and we had a solution, which was that we were going to build a system that was going to keep better track of how to file all the different insurance claims. Has anybody sort of experienced, had a taste of doctors and insurance claims and figuring out what payments are good and what payments aren't good? Any tasting of that? Anybody showed up with a medical bill that you don't quite get why you got it because you thought you were covered and you don't really remember what this was? Well, we were living that all day. And so we ended up running out of money, or getting kind of close to the bottom of the cookie jar, and needed another $900,000, we thought. So we said, look, the clinical model is proving out. The cesarean section rate of our population of San Diego was at 11%, whereas the average was at 24%. The NICU admissions, the neonatal intensive care unit admissions on our population, were about half the average per capita of San Diego County. And we were serving actually mostly Medicaid and low-income families. We had this interesting barbell. We had these very well-off moms in Birkenstocks who were like reading up on birth and were going to have this baby exactly right the way they wanted. And, they were like the first customer at Whole Foods. And then we had migrant laborers who actually didn't understand this whole doctor thing, and it seemed expensive to them. And those were we got about half our revenue from the moms, and there were about 10 of them. And then we got our other half from the 3,000 migrant workers and sort of regular working folks in San Diego. And so there were 3,300 births, 300 of one and 3,000 the other, and we came out about even. But we couldn't get this cash flow problem figured out. And so enter Ed Park, and my partner's Todd Park's younger brother. Any chance? Any hope?
Not yet. We're rebooting the whole machine now.
Rebooting the whole machine. It's good. Wouldn't want to be you. Not sure I'm going to be me right now, but I'm going to figure it out. So my partner Todd's younger brother is the president of the Harvard Computer Science Society. And he says, listen, there's this thing, the internet, and you can build a web page. And I'm like, come on. I went to the Harvard Business School. I know all of the important platitudes. And one of them is, thou shalt not build thine own management information systems. The theory of comparative advantage says that we are good at birth, and someone else is good at software, and we wouldn't want the software programmer to get into the midwife business. And we certainly don't want to get into the software business. And he said, yes, you're right. And then he wrote a web-native application anyway on his own with a bunch of other people because they really wanted to address this problem. I'm leaving out a really important part of this story because I don't have my cheater reminder things there. But the theory of the business in the first place, the vision of the business, was that healthcare actually has an integrity problem. And in our country, which was a weird concept because pretty much everybody who goes into healthcare seems to be a relatively decent person, cares about health and things like that. But if you looked at the difference between say and do, if you look at the difference between what doctors order and what actually happens, it's really bad. It's a really big leak. A group called the Institutes of Medicine did a huge study of these leakages and found that 35% of claims don't get settled on the first try, and 35% of abnormal lab results don't get back to the patient, and 28% of prescriptions don't get filled and used. Really bad. And in fact, if you look at the subset of those mistakes and those leaks that actually kill someone, it's 96,000 of them a year. 96,000 people a year get killed by accident by the United States health delivery system, which seems kind of awkward. In the book, in the Institutes of Medicine, the big book, if you're into this and you want to learn about healthcare, first of all, get my card. And then after you have my card, go to the IOM.org site, and there's a book called To Err is Human, which has this study, To Err is Human. And they equate it. They said if the airline industry, which has errors too, there are errors, people make mistakes in every industry, if the airline industry had the same error rate as the healthcare industry, then 2 jumbo jet airliners would fly into each other every 3 days, killing everyone aboard both planes by accident in the United States. And so the way we got the money was we excited the original founding team members. We excited ourselves. I was from a relatively comfortable upbringing. I didn't pay for any school. I didn't have any debt. And I didn't have the wonderful subsidy available here at BYU. And I just got it because I'm a well-off dad and mom. And I really wanted to do something that seemed like it would be important. And to figure out how I was able to translate a really comfortable upbringing into a really comfortable adulthood didn't seem to be all that satisfying. So I wanted to do something important. Thought maybe I'd be a doctor. And then I found out about all the science you had to know. So I needed a segue, a plan B. I got a job driving an ambulance for the city of New Orleans. And 6 at night to 6 in the morning, I had a really amazing experience there, very dramatic. And I got onto the idea that, if we could get into the doctor's office, to get into the places where these decisions were made, out in the field and out in these little isolated medical offices, you could have a huge impact and you wouldn't have to be that bright, which was really important to me because I wasn't that great a student. And so that's where I got started with this idea. And in fact, so now that's the part of the proposal of the first $50,000. We had this idea that we could actually make money making healthcare better, that we could actually make people choose a better and less effective, less expensive clinical path for themselves. And that seemed neat. It seemed neat. Everybody looked like they would win. Fast forward back to where we were. We got to this second round of financing. And we almost didn't make it. It was really hard. The people who were in the first time thought, well, let's give it a try. It was in the middle of the internet boom. I think they might have had, their portfolios doing kind of well. And so let's see what happens. And the fact that even though a lot of the data was good, it just seemed like, gee, I'm not ready to do another 50,000. And we went to venture capitalists, and we said we're a physician practice management company, which is what we were. We went and owned a stake of these physician practices. And wow, we could clear the room in about 6 words because physician practice management companies at the time were blowing up left and right and not working at all. And so we definitely weren't going to get any money from venture capitalists. But we got just enough to figure this out, and we built AthenaNet. But it almost killed us. I mean, we were barely making payroll every week. We were struggling all night and all day, trying to get doctors to do things the way we wanted to, trying to get the staff to operate in a way that we could manage, give them information that they needed. And it was exhausting. It was emotionally exhausting. My partner, Todd, took me aside and said, I think I have to quit. I just can't do this anymore. I love my wife. I don't want to keep beating myself up like this. I said, I really appreciate your sentiments. You can't quit. And just no. But it got really hard. And we looked at it and said, are we really being realistic here? The physician practice management companies are blowing up. We were barely able to raise this money. We're spending all of our time trying to get our own claims settled. We're working on this web page, which we called AthenaNet. And that's nothing to do with birth. We're not negotiating any special contracts. A big part of the business plan was we'd negotiate a contract with the insurance company that said, hey, look, we're going to spend a lot more time with patients, but they're going to need a lot less surgery and they're going to get a lot less really sick, and that's going to save you money. So give us half the savings, and we'll use it to deliver this better model and have some profit. That was the idea. But we weren't doing any of that because we were spending all of our time on the web page trying to figure out how the darn claims were going to get paid. And so we had a real serious conversation, and we decided that we got it so it was working. We got it so that we were actually getting paid, and we had this web page. And we said, we can do it. It's too important. What's the difference? Nobody's going to get their money back anyway. Let's just run it out. And so we went around to doctors to try to get the next and the next and the next pod. And the idea was we'd go into a city, we'd get 5 doctors that could cover each other's call, and then we'd start growing by hiring midwives. And that was going to be the way the model grew up. And we went into a couple cities, and basically every time we got in there and finally got a meeting with the perfect group, they said, I really don't want you to tell me what to do. And I really just want that system. What's that web page there that you showed me in the meeting? And one time, one of them actually went off and had a brother who's a venture capital and offered me $11 million for it. Guy from Dallas. Everything's big in Dallas. They'll give you $11 million. I hope you don't mind, but I don't really want you to tell me what to do. But I'll give you $11 million for that Athena net. And I went home to Todd. I said, Todd, I figured it out. One of the people who said no to the 50,000, like 99.5% of you, was a guy named Bill Donaldson, who started Donaldson, Lufkin, and Jen Red. He was the CEO of Aetna. He started a business school at Yale. He's a very prominent guy. And he has an amazing ability to do you wrong and make you apologize, which is probably why he's the CEO of all these great institutions. But he said, gosh, I wish I could give you the money. I mean, you are just a great guy and your entrepreneurial spirit. I'm so proud of you. And I'm not allowed to, really. I mean, Donaldson, Lufkin, and Jen Red controls all of my money, and it just would be completely out of the appropriate process for me to make any decisions. They'd feel overruled. After a while, I'm literally feeling terrible for this guy. And he says, but you probably don't want any advice from me. And I'm thinking, I really don't want any advice from you because you're not giving me any money. But I said, no, of course I want advice from you. And he said, well, here's the thing. I don't know why, because I don't know anything about healthcare, but your business idea probably won't work. And I don't mean that because I notice I can't give you any pointers. I really don't. Because they never do. They never do. But the thing is, you sound so enthusiastic. Maybe if you work at it long enough, a business model that will work will show up at your door. And so my advice to you is open the door. And then he opened his door. And that was the end of our meeting. Anyway, it's hard without PowerPoint. This is really healthy because there's too much PowerPoint in the world. So we're at the second round. We do this thing. The doctor offers us $11 million. It's not working very well. And I'm thinking, wow. And we started looking at it and thinking, what takes all our time? What exhausts us? Well, one, we have these late-night meetings trying to convince the doctors how to do things the Athena way. And we can't tell them what to do because they're the clinical experts, but we're supposed to be the business managers, and so we would get in these very arduous, exhausting conversations with each other. And they'd just whittle us down. And we thought, well, what if we just didn't get into those conversations? What if we said, look, here's what we think the best way to do it is, but do it any way you want. And what if we didn't convince them to sell a chunk of their practice to us? And we just said, look, do whatever you want. Here's the model. Do it, don't do it. And what if we just did all the things that were the things that kept us from doing the model in the first place? In other words, maybe the reason no one did this was not because no one thought of it. Maybe doctors kind of have more imagination than we gave them credit for. But in fact, they were bogged down the way we were, messing around with insurance claims and what happened to this lab and what happened to that patient and all of this fog of where anyone ever go into a doctor's office and kind of go, wow, it's messy. You ever notice like a lot of paper, just piles and boxes, and everyone's very busy, but you can't quite tell what everyone's doing. I mean, you have a general sense. I always found that fascinating. Okay, I didn't always find that fascinating, but recently I found it really fascinating. And I thought, God, what if these guys didn't have all this mess? What if someone just, did the radical makeover? Came in and said, out, all of this garbage, goodbye, took it away, and it was all working perfectly. What could they do then? And that became this idea that, wait a minute, we're the only guy who has this internet-based thing. It doesn't cost us anything to open up a new practice anywhere because it's just a web page. We own the license. The browser's free. The internet's free. I don't know how that works, but anyway. Something like whoever he is, he got screwed. Al Gore, poor guy. He could have a jet. Oh, no. Anyway. It just seemed like too good to be true. We just write this code in Perl as easy scripting language, I mean, I can't do it, but it's actually pretty easy. Why don't we just do this part? Because this is what everyone hates. And sure enough, I thought to myself, It's the knock. It's the knock. Open the door. And Todd and I had this very long conversation where he said, this is what we have to do. We have to do, he was like, well, we're about changing clinical healthcare forever. And I said, yeah, as long as we can do it on AthenaNet. And that was really difficult to swallow for both of us. Our offices were in our birth center. And the HVAC ducts, when the thing wasn't running, you could hear when a baby was born in one of the exam rooms. You could hear the sound, and you could hear the doula and the people who are with them all kind of make the squeaky noises that people make when the baby comes in the world. And it was a beautiful existence, notwithstanding the fact that we were belching money out left and right. It just seemed like that wasn't really us. Processing claims and web pages and what in the world? That's not us. And we sort of struggled with it, but came to the conclusion that if it's in the way of the vision, if it's the thing that's in the way of doing this for us, then and we believe it's in the way of everyone else, then it is that. Then it is the bouncier baby. Because if no one knows where the information's going, and no one knows what their blood type is, and no one knows what happened to the claim, and no one knows whether they should pay the bill or whether they can afford to see the doctor, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, then of course no one's being creative and doing new esoteric things. They're numb. They're numbly trying to keep the water level below their noses. And so this is what the baby needs. The baby needs the doctor and the parent to know what in the world is going on and to rely on it, to be able to step on that. And so we got everybody in the company together in my living room, only about 12 of us. We had 150 staff in California, but we had this corporate staff that was the folks that weren't in the practice, and we decided we have to sell the birth center. We have to buy out the doctors or sell out I don't know which way it was, but anyway, let the doctors go. And we had to undertake this incredibly boring thing that we've hated so much because we actually figured it out. And so we did. And so in 1999, in June, we split up. Leslie Locke went off to figure out how to unwind our practice in San Diego. Todd Park went out to find practices that would sign up for letting us do everything they hated and stunk at over the internet for them. And I went out to try to raise money after my stellar success to date. Of course, that was the obvious choice. And amazingly, I mean, it was like the clouds parted. Todd had signed up 5 practices in 45 days. And I had found about $13 million worth of investors in the same period of time. And wow, it was like a real epiphany. And if there can be epiphany in the world of medical claims, it's a big word to use in the wet medical claim world, but for us it was what it was. And so by the end of that year, by January, maybe November of 1999, I think we took on $11 million of venture capital money. No former bosses, aunts, and uncles need apply. And we started out on a path to improve healthcare's integrity problem at this unbelievably mundane, practical, tactical level. And we went around saying, we are going to collect for you. We're going to get the mess out of your office. We're going to check the patient's eligibility with the insurance company and figure out what their copay is supposed to be. And we're going to figure out how to get the claim into the insurance company's adjudication system, whether we have to build an electronic interface or print it in Form 5 or use the HCFA 1500 standard form, or whether we have to attach the physician's operative notes, or whether we have to include a report of the first accident that caused this injury. Whatever we have to do, we're going to get the claim in, and we're going to get the money back out. And if it isn't paid, we're going to figure out why, and we're going to build our software so that it prevents that denial from ever happening again. And we're going to get smarter and smarter and smarter at this humble, humble job. Charles Royce had a quote, which I read about in business school. He's a Rolls-Royce guy. He said, whoever does his work with passion, no matter how humble is noble. So no matter how humble the work is, if you do it for real with all your heart, you get some nobility reflected back. And that's the way it started to work. Not yet either. Not ever.
The projector's sitting in a corner and crying.
Okay, it's over. Okay, it's lit and everything. So sad. But we started selling this simple thing. We called it an Athena Collector. And we, the first year, got revenues of $200,000 in the form of 3 customers. And our first customer was Anchor Medical Group, and they were doctors who had been fired. They were employed by a health plan, and the health plan said, we don't want to employ doctors anymore. It's December 1st. On January 1st, your lease is up. Goodbye. And we wish you luck, and we're sorry. And they were basically facing, and luckily we ran into them, found out about them, showed up, and said, we can help you. We're ready to go. We can take the whole thing over. Because a group of the doctors said, well, heck with them. We'll just run our own practice. We'll bill for it. We're all here. We've got the employees. We're all been fired together. And the lease is up. We can just take the lease and keep going. And we said, and we'll do the billing. And we'll provide all the systems and everything. We're ready to go. And so they had this awkward moment of trying to decide between death and dishonor. And death looked rather attractive compared to these 12 kids who really wanted to do their billing over the internet, which was something they weren't really sure what it was. And but they went with dishonor and hired us. On the 17th of December, they signed a contract, 1 page long. We wrote on that laptop that we were sharing. And they went live on January 3rd. Great day to start an internet business service, Y2K day. And they ended their year with days in AR of about 54, which at the time was good. So the average medical group has takes about 70 days to get paid. They have to keep trying, and it goes around and around. And by the time it's in the bank, a weighted average time between when they saw the patient and when the money's in the bank is about 70 days. And we ended the year at about 52. We were ecstatic. And the next year we signed on more groups, and we brought the days in AR down on those. Today, the average days in AR of a customer that's before they got onto AthenaNet is 72, and the average days in AR of those customers on AthenaNet is 45. They've increased their revenues by an average of 11%. And probably most importantly, I know those 2 numbers. So there isn't anybody else in healthcare who makes technology for healthcare that knows the actual result of his or her technology. I know if it's working because I only get paid. Little detail. We decided, because we were managers and we were going to be involved in the delivery of this wholeheartedly, that we would only get paid when the customer got paid. So we would provide the software, servers, printers, people, whatever, and then we would get, at the time, 3% of the doctor's revenue. And it came in as if everybody had paid. And I said, look, if everybody came in with an American Express card, you'd pay them 3%. We're going to do everything for you. Mail this stuff, print it. Why don't you give us 3%? Now it's about 5%. But anyway, at the time, it seemed like a good deal to me to have something to do in the morning. And so they signed up. And little by little by little, we've been adding people to this network. And now what we've looked back and said, because we had this one server and we had this one application, and because we wanted to do all the work, we've actually got something that looks a little bit like a national health information backbone. Because every patient that every one of our customers serves is in the same database. Every doctor's in the same database. 20 million patients in one place. Every time we learn a new rule about an insurance company, we can build it into one place, one rules engine, and no doctor will ever get that denial from that insurance company ever again. So there's now emerging from this bunch of guys who thought that they could bring some integrity into healthcare, the possibility at, really actually bringing integrity into the information set in healthcare. There's now, I don't think anybody thinks that we used to think, who are these guys? And, if you could do half of that, I'd hire you tomorrow, but I don't think you can do half of that and get out of here. We're a pretty credible company now. We've got Jack Kane, one of your alumni, on our board of directors from the dominant software model. And what we're doing, thinking of another BYU-type guy, anyone know Clay Christensen? So, he studies disruptive technologies. What we've done is we've taken this internet, we've bumped into, accidentally, by trying to do birth with midwives, an internet-based business service. It's not software as a service. It's the service. And software is the enabler. It's a business model. It's a business model that could be used in a million places. And it is disrupting the software companies. The software companies make 90% margins, 80% margins when they sell a disk. And then you've got to use it. You know, the salesperson at the software company says, look at all these features. Their projectors all work at those companies. And, you know, they show you these... Sorry. Let me show you all these features, and now imagine yourself using them. Use properly, comma, ... you know, and they make some wonderful claims. But it's not their fault it doesn't work, right? Because you didn't use it properly. Makes sense, right? What we're saying is, I don't care if you use it. I won't let you not use it properly. And I won't make you pay for it right now. I'll only make you pay for it as it works over time. And so we find ourselves in a position of rolling out 7 new releases of AthenaNet to all of our customers every year. And not charging them, not even telling them, and not giving them a choice. Because we need them to get better. Because as more of their claims get paid electronically on the first try, our profit that comes out of that little percentage of revenue we get goes up. So we started with negative gross margins for 5 years, and then we got kind of crept along. And most outsourcers make around 10, 15% gross margins, sometimes 20. And now in our markets where we've done most of the automation and understand most of the different insurance companies, we're making 70% gross margins. So almost like the software company. Remember the software company? But we're actually doing all the work also inside of that number. And most excitingly to Todd and I, we've launched our second service. So Athena Collector is doing very well and growing very quickly. We've now started to roll out Athena Clinicals. So just the way claims are lost and things. Remember the Institutes of Medicine? It wasn't the claims that killed the 96,000 people. Those made them want to kill people, but it didn't kill them. But the blood tests and the prescriptions that were written with the wrong number of dosage amounts, you know, off by a decimal point, that's now a new product for us. So we're now saying, we've already said, let us handle your mail and your checks and your claims and your forms and all the stuff about dealing with insurance companies. Now we're saying, let's handle the chart room too. All those manila folders, that's reliable, isn't it? You know, I thought it was in here somewhere, and they're all different shapes. You know, and they have the little metal things they fold up, and they jam the piece of paper, and then they fold them down again, and you think, aha, healthcare information integrity at its finest. What we're doing now is we're saying, well, first of all, we'll give you this really cool internet-based software to use for free in your office, but let us handle all of the charts. And what we'll do is we'll go to every laboratory you deal with, and we'll either say, let us build a direct connection into your laboratory system, or just send the faxes to us. We'll call the phone company, forward the doctor's fax number to us, and we'll key punch those lab results in so they're not wrong. We'll key punch the refill requests from the pharmacists that are off by a digit. We'll find all those leaks, and we'll deal with them. And then one by one, we'll make the people who are not participating participate. But instead of it being 5 doctors here and 10 doctors there and 1 doctor here, all trying to imagine automating the 55 people that they deal with when they deliver health care to you, it's one company. It's one network of 15,000 doctors, growing 40% a year, knock on wood, for many years to come. And we can ask on behalf of all of them. So it's a wonderful approach. It's very satisfying because we feel like, wow, these guys have unbelievably high error rates. They're losing these results. They're reordering them and potentially authorizing prescriptions that are not at the right levels. And we can stop it and make money doing it. We'd do that for free. As long as someone paid us to do something else. That idea that our business model has kind of crept all the way around, stumbling, bumbling, accidentally, from these to actually delivering, or at least enabling people to deliver, the kind of care that we imagine everybody getting someday. And we found all these little practical, tactical leaks in the process that were going to make it impossible. And we've been able to pick them up and hold them. And actually, probably most importantly, hold ourselves up as a source, this approach of sticking around to deal with the results and not just selling a tool and running on to the next prospect. We've been able to hold ourselves up as a source of financial success. Athena Health went public a year and 4 days ago. It was the #1 initial public offering of 2007. and the #1 technology offering since 2001. Doing claims for doctors. Cool. It was great. Plus, it's really fun to do a road show and all that. But what was exciting was that put a little beacon. You guys know a lot about beacons around here. Put a little beacon up that said, if you actually stick around and slog away and stay on something, you could actually do better than if you found the easy solution and made money on it in the short term. Which I like. I like that idea, and it's been much more satisfying. So that's the company today. We're 700 people. We've got 3 operation centers in the United States and 1 software platform center in India. Did I say 700 employees, 15,000 providers, about 150 million. I don't really know our revenues, and if I did, I probably shouldn't tell you. Growing very quickly. The last time we released our growth was at the end of the second quarter, and it was 35% over the same quarter of the last year. We'll do over 30 million claims this year, and have customers on this network that range from solo practitioners and with the cable modem off the side of their house to CVS Minute Clinic with little retail clinics in every one of the 600 Minute Clinic CVS pharmacies. And it's going very well. We're hiring all the time, and the folks from BYU do really well at Athena. In fact, one of them will be here any minute, and you can talk to him about what it's been like. But that's how it's working. I asked John what I should talk about, and he said, talk about 40 minutes. So that's 40 minutes. Do you have any questions, or do you want to, we could have an awkward silence if you want? Yes?
Do you do just health clinics, or do you do all sorts of other types of practices like audiology or eye doctors?
We're in.
Could you repeat the question?
Do we do just clinics, like just women's health clinics, or just? And the answer is right now we're doing 68 specialties. So we don't do dentistry, and we try to avoid psychiatry. I guess we all do at some level, but probably shouldn't. But it's most of the things. The other thing we don't do today is we don't do hospital claims. One of the key ingredients to this business model is the network effect. So when I learn how Blue Cross of Utah handles a given kind of claim, it's pretty much going to be the same adjudication rule for every doctor in the state that's in network. Not so of the hospitals. Each hospital has a different contract with health plans. And so that network effect, that leverage of being able to spend $100, $300 researching a denied claim because I know if I find the answer, it's going to prevent anybody from getting that in the future, that leverage doesn't work on the hospital side right now, so we're sticking with ambulatory health care. Now, the good news is there's about $450 billion of annual ambulatory health care, and only less than $4 billion of them go through AthenaNet. So we got a little runway before we have to get into other things. So I was just telling your dean, I was like, all I want is 10%. That's $3 billion a year. Yeah. Sorry. Stay in focus.
With that type of information and a lot of information security that goes along with that,
Yeah.
how do you deal with dedicated teams for this information security?
Great question. So the question is, so great, you got all these people in the one database, but what happens now to your information security requirements when it's one little practice alone in a neighborhood? If they're, if the charts are on the wall, I mean, you could steal a chart really easily, but which one and who cares, right? But if you've got 20 million patients' charts in one place, that's serious. That's an attractive target to some wacko. And so, yeah, we have a huge information security, also information redundancy. So we have 2 big data centers, primary data center and a secondary data center with 2 of everything in both. So huge amounts of redundancy. Again, if the doctor's system goes down for the day, it's just, we'll get the guy in, he'll come down, he'll fix it. But if AthenaNet went down for the day, that's 15,000 doctors, and really, really not okay. So once you step into this public utility role, you get held to public utility type standards. We as a public company, we get inspected 17 ways to Sunday, and I think it's good. A lot of people are frustrated by it and find it bureaucratic, but we are selling integrity, aren't we? I mean, I started by saying the problem is the difference between say and do. Well, we need to make sure that our own knitting is lined up if we're going to sell that to someone else. So Confucius may have said something like that.
You had all these people trying to tell you that your model wasn't good enough, that you should just quit, you shouldn't do it. Why didn't you quit? And what inner motivation did you have that kept you going?
Lovely.
Why did you take the 11 million?
Why did I take the 11 million? Seemed like a lot. I think the most important thing in work, in life, for me, is to have something bigger and better than you to work for. And this just seemed that way to me. I could imagine other things, and if I got dropped, which can happen any time. My boss is sitting right here. I'm watching my mouth very carefully. I'd probably find something else like that, but that was what kept me going, is the idea that, of course it's not obvious, and of course it isn't, but there's got to be a way to make doing well and doing good as harmonious as possible with one another, especially in healthcare. There's just got to be a way. And also, practically speaking, that way I could fail more. Like if I'm insecure and all my friends and cousins are sort of super smart and agile and able, but I'm doing something that's got another. I can't be held by the same measuring stick, right? Because I'm doing something good. So leave me alone, okay? I'm going to lose money because this is good, right? So partly I think it's true, and the light side of me says that was inspired of me to hear that and follow it, and the dark side of me says, yeah, but you were giving yourself an excuse for failing, and that was true too. So, yeah. Got to call him like I see him. Yeah, there, and then we'll go right here afterwards.
How did you choose which investment bank to take public?
How did I choose which investment banks? I could not tell the difference to save my life. I said to myself, I marvel that these guys are making any money at all, and I have no idea why they don't go out of business. Whoops. I literally did. And so I said, Carl, who's our CFO, I said, Carl, you pick. For the life of me, I can't tell the difference. None of them are giving me a discount, and I can't figure out what they're doing. They had a really cool airplane, but it turned out they rented that, and we had to pay. So that went away. At the end, actually, I was so mad that they paid. But I really felt like it's a testament to the capital markets, the sophistication and the electronification and the integration of our capital markets, that them as gatekeepers was a obsolete model. This is the classic disruptive technology curve that Clay Christensen talks about, that they wake up dead and they didn't know. They're coming to work, I'm like, no, you're dead. No one cares about you anymore, you're gone. Like, no, I'm not. I'm in charge. No, you're not, you're dead. It was like the great Wang Computer. Clay writes about Wang Computer, the company that had the mini computers. And you can imagine being the CEO of Wang Computer, right? And he says, so you want me to build a $400,000 computer at 20% margin that my most important customers love, and you want me to build a $2,000 computer at 2% margin that all my customers hate. I'm going to go with you, right? But then, as the little PCs got smarter and smarter and smarter and bigger and more aggressive and more reliable, he's now focused on two customers that are going to pay $800,000 at 30% margins, and there's no one else who cares what he's doing. And the team comes in to take apart Wang, and the management team say, what are you doing? You're selling that helicopter. We got a great deal on that helicopter. That was a great helicopter? You're dead. You don't need a helicopter. You need a taxi, because we just took your car. And this is sort of the way I see what my little one guy experience with the investment banks is. I honestly didn't get the level I could not differentiate between them to save my life, and I couldn't find. That's it. No more questions. No more on that question. Don't say mean things about investment banks.
Who's your competition?
Okay, last one, 10 seconds.
Who's your competition, and what's the difference between you and them besides your giant database?
Great question. I'm going to keep it to who's our competition. My competition right now, because we're a disruptive technology, there aren't other folks doing it this way, there will be before you know it, is doing it yourself with software. So the established players are the big software companies, IDX Systems, which is now owned by GE and other guys like that. And they have loyal user groups that work in the customers that we're selling to that would not be needed if we got hired. So our competition is really the folks around those software systems that are dependent on them. Soon there'll be regular competition, and everyone says, I look forward to that competition. Well, I don't really. I like being alone. But that's where we are right now. Thank you guys for your attention. I'm sorry about my shoddy PowerPoint.
Thank you so much.
Oh, pleasure.